The federal government's going to continue to do this, sneak into our province, not talk to the provincial government, and try now to enter our jurisdiction. We won't be bribed with their money.
Justin Trudeau is stirring up a mess by going around Danielle Smith and trying to do deals in Alberta, trying to change how the system works there without consulting the Premier. On top of that, Vasi Capellos goes one-on-one with the House Leader, and we'll give you an update here on the carbon tax protest. So let's jump into this episode. So first off, here we are, day 7 of the carbon tax protest. Outside of Calgary here, they got hundreds of people. Definitely got a cold snap there in Calgary. It's kind of chilly out here in Vancouver Island as well. I wonder if those zombie fires are still burning. What's the deal with these liberals? They're always making up new terms. You know, zombie fires, we've got atmospheric rain. These terms never existed when I was a kid. There's no such thing as an atmospheric river. And then on zombie fires, I can't remember. They have another one too. These seem to be liberal made up words to make things seem more scary than they are. Another thing spotted at the protest today, bouncy castles. Watch out. We know what's happening now. When the bouncy castles come out, so do the cops. Watch out for the RCMP on their mounted horses. We've got a speed camera here. It says here, this morning on Victoria Ave in Vineland, Niagara, Ontario, someone used a cordless grinder to cut the bottom of the post of the speed camera. How unfortunate. That happens out in Vancouver Island here too. We have a bunch of logging gates that prevent people from getting out to the bush. Sometimes those gates they disappear too with a cordless grinder or plasma cutter or something. Next up, we got a clip here from the Amazing Zoltan, which is a fun edit of this, one of these recent announcements. There's so many announcements. They're all just nonsense. Just Trudeau and his liberals just wasting money on silly things.
I was able to talk to people who are working on figuring out when patients should be released from hospitals. And I've learned that some of that technology is being used right now. And it helps people not be released too early so that we don't die. Wonderful. Amazing that that work is being done right here. I saw work being done so that robots can do chemistry experiments. I was able...
This woman, does she understand how she sounds? This is hilarious. Yeah, hilarious editing. Also, robots doing chemistry experiments so we won't die. Yeah. Chrystia Freeland is just an absolute nut. Next up, we got a clip here. This freeze frame. The clip we've got here is from the CBC. She interviews Jason Nixon, who's of Danielle Smith's government over in Alberta. As you can see by the title, Alberta won't be bribed by federal money. Justin Trudeau's been going behind their backs to set up deals with municipalities and not with the premiers, and he's trying to undermine and change the provincial rules and regulations. Basically, he's trying to enforce some environmental measures in the buildings, which will slow down building permits and buildings in general. And Alberta's building more homes and faster than they ever have in history, and they don't want Trudeau screwing it up. So that's the real issue here.
With the onslaught of announcements also comes some criticism, some pushback, including from Alberta's government, which has said Ottawa is playing politics and ignoring its jurisdiction when it comes to housing.
We recognize provinces have a responsibility and jurisdiction over those areas, but the federal government is saying, you know what? We can be there to help as well. So we've put money on the table for those provinces that choose to be ambitious about what they want to do. If they don't want to do more in those areas, they don't have to take our money.
Alberta, just one of the provinces that says it has some concerns with Ottawa's housing plans. Jason Nixon is the province's Minister of Seniors, Community and Social Services, and I spoke to him earlier from Calgary. You have said that you have deep concerns about the Housing Infrastructure Fund that's worth $6 billion announced this past week. What are your concerns here?
Well, we got a couple concerns. First is that we continue to see from the federal government that they are not investing in all provinces equally. We've been calling on per capita funding to make sure all provinces continue to receive their fair share when it comes to housing. Alberta has not. We also still do not see any major announcements when it comes to making sure the federal government deals with their challenges on reserve, which is their responsibility. Our Indigenous communities have been calling for housing, and still nothing has come from this announcement. We continue to call on the federal government to invest in that area, as is a responsibility. But now what we see is, instead of working with the province of Alberta and other provinces as we've requested to when it comes to the housing crisis in the province, that they've continued just to come into our province, bypass the provincial government, try to work with municipalities or other providers directly. This is not appropriate. This is not their area of jurisdiction. And this province will not be bribed by federal money to let the federal government continue to come into our province and enter our jurisdiction. We will continue to fight for Albertans' rights and to be able to make sure that we maintain what we need going forward.
So I get all that. What they are saying, though, is you can have access to this pool of money if you agree to some of the conditions that they put on there in terms of adopting 4 units, duplexes, triplexes, other ways of creating housing. And if you don't, if you don't agree to those conditions, they will go to cities and make deals separately with cities. So is it the conditions you don't like, or is it that they are saying, if you don't buy in, we'll find another way to get the money out?
Well, there's actually 3 things. So first is the conditions are beyond just going to city bylaws and zoning decisions. They're actually bringing forward conditions of having to adopt building code rules inside our province that would move forward with Justin Trudeau's green agenda, something that this province rejects. It will slow down our construction industry in our province and frankly be devastating to the progress we already see in Alberta. I don't know if you know this, but Alberta continues to have each and every month be new records in our largest city as far as construction of residential homes, including purpose-built rentals. And we don't want to see anything for the federal government slowing that down. Second, municipal governments are our jurisdiction, and the federal government stepping into that area is something we will not accept. You don't see this taking place in the province of Quebec as an example, and that's because Quebec has passed legislation to make sure the feds can't do that. And both the Premier and I have made clear in the last several weeks that we will be doing the same, because we've just had enough of the federal government flying into Alberta and not working with the province when it comes to important things like housing.
So the housing accelerator funds also had conditions, and also provinces took some issue with that. But cities went ahead and signed deals with the federal government. Edmonton did it, Calgary did it, lots of other cities across the country. So are you saying that shouldn't be happening? That doesn't work? That the cities don't need the money? Help me understand.
Well, a lot of our cities or elsewhere inside the province are very disappointed because they still haven't received any money from that funding. So yes, if you call up a mayor and offer millions of dollars, of course they're going to sign on because they're trying to address some of the issues in their community. But we are not going to allow that to continue to happen in the province, by targeted mayors who may or may not be political allies of the current federal government. The federal government needs to come in and work with the provinces who know where our needs are, who are already investing. I mean, I'm investing $9 billion in affordable housing in our province right now, which is significant money, and come in and partner with us. We've made clear we want to partner. We want to work to make sure to get that housing where it's needed. But again, if the federal government's going to continue to do this, sneak into our province, not talk to the provincial government and try now to enter our jurisdiction, we won't be bribed with their money. We'll take steps to make sure that we protect the sovereignty of this province going forward, and and to fight to be able to get deals like Quebec's getting. I mean, clearly Quebec, by passing legislation to make sure the federal government can't do this to them, continues to come up in big ways and get proper investments inside their province.
What? So are you saying you're not taking this money? Is that what you're saying, that the province is not going to take this money?
We will not be taking any money if it comes with a requirement to adopt green building codes and things like not being able to hook up our houses to natural gas or bizarre decisions that are going to increase the cost of building construction inside our province.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't say that, to be fair. It says that it will support more accessible, affordable, and climate-friendly housing options. Is your government not interested in climate-friendly options?
This is the problem. It doesn't say a lot. And so, again, we've been asking for details, but we have heard from the federal government before some of the things that they would like to see us do when it comes to housing as far as their green climate agenda, which will result in construction cost increasing in our province and our record number of construction going down and more Albertans not being able to get an affordable home. And no, we will not accept that. Now, we will happy to work with the federal government on partnerships when it comes to housing, to invest our money, which we already are, to work with them to be able to make sure their investment ends up in the right spot. But if they're coming into the province to make construction more expensive, to slow down our construction industry, no, we won't accept it. These issues we take seriously, and we are working with our municipalities, but it's none of the federal government's business. And we're not going to tolerate them ever coming in and telling our municipalities or our province, how we should regulate issues that are in our jurisdiction. But again, the climate issues themselves are enough for the province of Alberta to say full stop, no, Prime Minister, we're not interested in having this forced upon our industry and making the cost of Alberta's homes go up and making the cost of Albertans' bills go up every month as a result of an ideological policy and decision from the federal government.
It does sound, though, with all due respect to you, Minister, that your position is also ideological, right? Like at a time when people are struggling and are looking for more affordable homes, and you're shutting down an idea of taking money because of your opinions on how it's going to be used and your opinions on their climate policy.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely ideological when it comes to protecting Albertans' rights, and so you're correct.
Yeah.
And then the federal government coming in and increasing the cost of homes. That's what this policy will do if we were to adopt it. It will make things more expensive. It will slow down construction. It will not solve the problem that is already being solved in our province. Again, we have record numbers of construction taking place in our province, highest amounts of purpose-built rentals in the history of the province being built in both Calgary and Edmonton. And we are very concerned that the federal government will come in with their agenda, they made very clear, and try to force upon green construction rules on our industry and make everyday Albertans' lives more expensive. Frankly, the federal government has done that enough in our province, and we're not going to allow that to happen.
She's clearly got a memo there on her desk where she's got to push this, this pro-Trudeau garbage. I like it here. Jason's pushing back hard, and he's just like, no, we're not doing it. That's it. Full stop. No, we're not taking the money with green initiatives that hurt the province. That's how it should be. It's for the people. Regarding Trudeau and Guilbeault pushing these policies and slowing down home constructions, you might almost say they planned it this way. It's just so corrupt what they're doing. They are just trying to drive us out. Simply putting a tax on fuel on vehicles when everyone has to drive is essentially a tax on, it's a way to phase out us as humans. It's just gross. It's absolutely disgusting. Next clip here, we've got Vassie Capellas, who's interviewing Steve McKinnon. She pushes him pretty hard on basically Trudeau's flip-flopping of building houses and all sorts of stuff.
For example, one of the announcements your government made this week was a $15 billion top-up to a program that doles out loans in order to build apartments.
Yes.
That is a program that was initially introduced in 2017 under a different name, $25 billion in loans. $18 billion of that has already been loaned out. So far, 11,000 units have been constructed in 7 years. What about that record would give Canadians the impression you ever felt this was an urgent national priority?
You know, builders in my riding tell me that those very programs are the ones that are making a difference between making a decision to put shovels in the ground now or shovels in the ground perhaps on a longer term basis and get those rental units built. And I think the CMHC report that you referred to talked about in most markets in Canada, rental housing and those rental units are going up more quickly, and that specific segment is growing. Those are real units that are going to house Canadians, and that's part of the mix that we will require to get supply up and prices down.
But that didn't address the substance of my question, which was that the record your government has on that program is a negligible one. I mean, 11,000 units in 7 years for $18 billion.
But these are loans, and that is one part of the mix. So those loans are repaid, and those with interest to Canadians and to the taxpayers. So anything that is able to be done to move the yardsticks for rental housing. There are other programs and other initiatives designed to increase the volume and supply of other kinds of housing. But I think any tool and lever that we can use right now to bring stability to this very thorny issue is, I think, a welcome one.
And
thorny issue. That's what people not having houses is called now. So somebody in the comments I saw somewhere did the math on that. Turns out each house with the 11,000 completed off the whatever $1 billion, it works out to each house costing $16 million. That's what they've wasted on this, essentially not building houses. With the amount of money they spent on this housing accelerator stuff, we could have had some world-class AI-driven facility that automatically builds houses in a machine in a factory with robots, like a car factory, like a Tesla factory, but for houses that just builds them and ships them out the door, like beautiful tiny homes that can be just put down onto a concrete foundation and it's good to go. But instead we have essentially nothing. 11,000 houses.
Certainly, I'm not taking away from the point that like lots of stuff helps, but ultimately Canadians will need that stuff to be effective. And that's why I'm asking about your prior record and if you estimate that this will be any different and how long will it take? I know you're talking about the long term. The problem is felt acutely now by Canadians, particularly the younger ones that your government is speaking to. How long will it take for them to be able to afford a home?
Well, let's talk about the evolution of this issue. 2015, standing stop. The federal government was essentially out of the housing business when we took over. A couple years in, we tabled the National Housing Strategy. Those programs are operating. They're investing in every province and every corner of this country in collaboration, it must be said, with provinces, with cities, with organizations. That real homes are getting built with this strategy. We've added to that now, of course, because we have this additional supply problem.
The CMA.
Did he just really blame Harper there? The problem started back before with Harper. It's 9 years later. It's Harper's fault. That's all these liberals do. It's so sad.
HC says in order to restore affordability, by 2030, an additional 3.5 million homes have to be created. Right now, with the suite of things you've announced, you're getting towards, I think it's around 800,000, something like that. So my point is essentially, yes, you're going to have an impact on supply over the long term, probably not for another decade. And ultimately, it will somewhat work towards restoring affordability, but it's not nearly the amount that the CMHC has laid out is necessary. Which leads me to
not all homes are a direct result of government programming either, of course.
Sure,
and that's
but
why we
housing
want to,
starts are down.
That's why we want to enable more housing by allowing municipalities to leverage funds to put those sewers in, the streets in, and make sure that development can occur in a rational, reasonable way in their communities, and so that people can have access to a greater supply, a greater number of options, so that our young people can have that aspiration to own a home.
Is there any consideration about the shorter term and what other levers are available to you around immigration? You've done some stuff on the temporary streams. Have you ruled out anything else?
He put in a reduction after the country's basically bursting at the seams and everyone's calling for it. Mark Miller is just an absolute worthless fool. And same with Sean Fraser. They both are just complete boneheads. If we had a donkey and a goat running those two positions, the housing and immigration, we would have a much, much better Canada. I say that as a joke, but it's actually true. Because obviously a donkey and a goat would do nothing. And that's the point.
Well, let's talk about immigration, because, everywhere I go in my riding or across the country, I have business people, small business people, farmers, the hospitality sector, manufacturers, large and small. They need people. We have labor pressures in this country. We have labor shortages. So the government, quite properly, in conjunction with provinces, in conjunction with employers, put in a mix of tools that would allow them to supplement the number of temporary workers. We are now at a point where that has obviously become an issue in terms of the raw numbers of people who are in the country. So you've seen
Canada
Mr.
can't
Miller,
absorb it, is what the Prime Minister admitted this week.
Well, you've seen Mr. Miller put in place now a reduction in the number
in the temporary stream.
of
I'm
those
just simply
temporary
asking, have
residents.
you ruled out any other measures, for example, along the permanent stream?
Well, the permanent stream, remember, are economic immigrants. They're judged on a point schedule.
But you have a number,
for the most part, these are people who come to the country with, in many cases, financial resources, education, their skills, and
They still need a home,
and their imaginations are needed in this country, and we need to continue to grow. We have a declining birth rate, like most Western countries, and Canada, I think, is seen as a model around the world for how we are able to attract skilled immigrants to this country who come and immediately participate in our workforce, immediately create other opportunities for Canadians, and immediately positively impact our country.
We have declining birth rate because you guys have made it so expensive to live. Out of my friend group growing up, I'm 40 years old. I only have, like, my immediate friend group from high school, there's one guy has 2 kids. All the rest of us don't have kids. This is coming from someone who's 40 years old. So if you're 35 or 30, forget about it. That's like 100% chance you're not having kids, because things were starting to get bad for me in my 30s, 35, but then it's just gotten astronomically bad now. Like, forget about it. I'll just go hike mountains and have a nice cat. Like, there's one sleeping next to me here. Boo? Yeah, so when it comes to having kids, like, this is it for a lot of us. This is crazy. crazy cat. Where are you going? Come back. The people want to see you. Boo, let go. As for housing starts, they're down so much now that we're going to have this kind of reverse boom of houses not being built because there's so many houses not being started, or big buildings, big condo towers, all that kind of thing. Okay, it's time for you. Okay, it's time for you to go. And now you can see why she doesn't sit on my lap. She likes her bed over there.
And I'm not taking away from the virtues of immigration, but I think it's a fair question when the Prime Minister admits this week that immigration has exceeded the capacity of Canada to absorb the levels that they're currently at, to ask whether or not, beyond the temporary streams and the decisions you've made there, if your government is prepared to do anything else. From your answer, I take it that the answer is no.
Well, in terms of our regular immigration program, we are going to continue with that because it's what demographers and others say is required in the long-term interests of paying the pensions and the health care and the things that Canadians value.
I have just one quick final question.
It's just unbelievable, man. Everything's breaking. Obviously, the solution right now is to cut the immigration to almost nothing. Put in some new technology, invest in 3D printed houses or whatever it may be. Get the housing supply up, then bring up the immigration. What's the problem? As Justin Trudeau said, it's basic math.
Because I imagine I'll be asking a lot of questions about the way in which all of this will be paid for. I know $15 billion plus a little bit more is loans. $10 billion is new spending on top of a $40 billion deficit. Do you plan on introducing either a wealth tax or an excess wealth or excess profit tax?
I'm going to let the finance minister announce the full budget on April 16th. I know she will be addressing all of the things that you and I regularly look
you're
forward.
announcing the whole budget in advance of the budget, so I think it's fair to ask how much it's all going to cost. Are you going to raise taxes in order to pay for what you're promising?
Oh, I think we've been very detailed about what these specific measures are going to cost, and yes, we've used these 2 weeks outside of Parliament to travel across the country, work with community groups, work with provinces, mayors, and others to make sure that they understand and they can contribute to our housing policies. But the budget remains the budget. It'll be announced on April 16th, and it will contain all of the fiscal measures and projections and other things that we've always looked for.
So you can't say yes or no to taxes at this point?
I'm going to let the finance minister talk about her own budget.
I'll make sure I ask about that then. Thank you very much, Minister. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, so he's not giving up the budget. One thing I did hear that is different than what I was talking about on my other channel, if you watch that, the tax hike video, where I thought it seems, based off of something I saw a guy saying he had a friend who worked in the finance industry, and it seems like Trudeau's going to be increasing the capital gains. So if you have a second house and you go to sell it, instead of paying 50% of the capital gains, you'd be paying like 70% or 80%, something like that. But I heard someone else say recently they might be adding capital gains onto the sale of primary residences, which would be wild. You have houses that have skyrocketed in value, and then when people sell their house, they have to pay capital gains on that. That would be... There would be riots in the streets. So we're going to have to see what it is on April 16th, what they really announce. To finish this video off, we've got a clip here from Justin Trudeau. I just want to play about 12 seconds of it, basically the start and the end. But you can see here, it says PM criticizes premiers for spreading misinformation. It's amazing he even says this. You have 7 different premiers saying this stuff about the carbon tax. Oh, they're all wrong. Apparently they're all wrong.
This is about the carbon tax. 6 premiers have asked for a First Minister's meeting with you. You have so far not committed to anything. What does that say to the discussions with premiers and federalism?
Continued to have robust discussions with all premiers over the past months. And I will remind people that we had a First Minister's conference on the environment and on climate change within the first months of us taking office, where we set out the framework for the pan-Canadian fight against climate change.
I had a very robust conversation 8 years ago on this.
What a guy. He questioned in another interview why he wouldn't meet with Andrew Furey about the climate change stuff, and he said, I had a meeting with him in 2016. This is so ridiculous and embarrassing. So we go to the end of the video here, is where he basically talks about the misinformation stuff.
Individually or collectively, another way of fighting climate change and supporting affordability for Canadians, I'm all ears. But right now, all we see is premiers misinforming Canadians, and wanting to take away the Canada carbon rebate checks that are making a huge difference in people's lives.
That's going to be the sword he dies on, those stupid Canada carbon rebate checks. The ones that people like me in British Columbia don't get. We just get higher cost of living on everything, and we get nothing back. That's thanks to the bonehead David Eby, the one whose government has been caught now in a scandal laundering money through the EV grants program. Just despicable. Finally, here we've got a message of hope here from Pierre Polyev. This is a nice video. It's just something nice to see for once.
I had to come to a point to face up to my own addiction. I actually completed the Bribed program just a few months ago, and I'm 5 months sober today.
And it helped you?
It helped me, absolutely.
Great.
And I just want to thank you for your presence was welcome there. I know it was talked about even when I went there, how you went there last year, and you inspired me. I'm signed up for university to go into political science and finance, and you just bring hope to me. And I want to say thank you.
Well, listen, the fact that you went through that hardship is a superpower. Because if you can overcome that, you can overcome anything. And you'll now go on to graduate from university and maybe start a business or do something else amazing with your life. That's exciting.
Yeah, it is.
Right on.
Bring it
Inspire
home.
me. Let's bring it home, my friend.
How many times have you heard of someone being inspired by Justin Trudeau bettering their life because of Justin Trudeau? Never. That's never happened. So that was a nice little tidbit there to put on the end of the video. That's where I wrap up this episode. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Steve McKinnon just running his mouth. What is this budget? How is it? How are they paying for everything? I wouldn't be surprised. It was just something completely ludicrous because it's Chrystia Freeland. She's a Russian literature major or whatever. She's not a finance person at all. I think as time goes on here, you're going to see more and more conversations like Jason Nixon there in Alberta. More and more people are going to want to move to Alberta, where it'll be like the last stronghold of common sense and just pushing back on all this nonsense. So time will tell. Housing prices are, they're high there, but they're a lot lower there than at pretty much most other places. I've had some people send me some listings in Alberta. There's some rural places you can buy in Alberta still for like $100,000. So if you have no problem living out the sticks, Alberta is the place to be. It's cold there. It's cold there. I grew up in Alberta. If you guys didn't know, I grew up just outside of Calgary. So I spent 20 years living out in BC on the West Coast and 2 years in Ontario. So that's where I wrap this up. Be sure to subscribe. Make sure you turn on the notifications so you get notified of my videos. I greatly appreciate all of you. We're going to keep fighting the fight here. I'll keep bringing you guys the truth, and I'll see you guys in the next one.